James?
Hi, I'm Eileen Fleming, and I'm here with Reverend Father Dave from Australia, who's on a speaking tour throughout America. We're in my kitchen table in Florida. Father Dave's an Episcopal priest, and I'm a Christian anarchist. And before we get to the issues of how we got connected in 2005, I have a few theological questions to ask him, and I'll begin by citing the Gospel of John Lennon. The struggle is in the mind. We must bury our own monsters and stop condemning people. We're all Christ and Hitler. We want Christ to win. We're trying to make Christ's message contemporary. What would he have done if he'd had TV, radio, advertisements, records, newspapers? Well, Christ used miracles to tell his story, and the miracle today is communications. Well, the miracle now is the internet, and that's exactly how Father Dave and I connected. But my first question to you, Father Dave, is 2,000 years ago, the cross had no symbolic religious meaning. It was a symbol of how Rome got rid of all their agitators, rebels, dissidents. And when Jesus said, "You must pick up your cross and follow me," didn't all the people then 2,000 years ago understand he was talking political? You had to pick up this cross. If you rose up against the Roman occupying forces, chances were you were going to get crucified for being a rebel or dissident. So wasn't that a political statement on his part?
That's a good question. Was it a political statement? I'm not sure. So, take up your cross means being willing to suffer, I think, certainly. I mean, the cross is a political symbol, and Jesus got himself crucified by the Roman authorities. He wasn't stoned as a heretic, so he was crucified as a agitator, no doubt about that. To say though that when he says take up your cross, I think it's similar where elsewhere he says count the cost.
Yes.
It's going to cost you. You've got to lose your life in order to save it. Whether the only way to lose your life is through political agitation is another question, I think. But he does say too, remember, if they hated you, they hated me first. No servant's greater than his master. So the expectation will always be, I think, that if you're going to be true to the gospel message, you're going to come into confrontation with people in power at some point, and you're going to have to be willing to pay the price of that.
And also, when Jesus spoke about you must be born again to enter the kingdom of heaven, was he? I don't think he was talking about one spontaneous, isolated incident, but a continuing process, a transformation of heart and mind to see the divine within oneself, every other, all creation, and every situation.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you on that. Only because the being born again, you're quoting from John 3. As I read John 3, the word anothen in the Greek, actually, he's playing on words. He's actually saying you've got to be born from above. Despite the fact that any number of evangelicals have used the term born again, and Nicodemus in the dialogue with Jesus understands him as saying, "Oh, you mean we've got to be born again?" It's a play on words. In actual fact, he's saying, "No, you've got to be born from above. What is flesh is flesh." He says, "What is spirit is spirit. You must be born from above." So God's got to be involved. That's the point. I think people have used and misused that.
I agree. So am I on the right track when I say he's talking about a transformation of heart and mind, bringing it all together, the unity of the Spirit too, to see that God, the divine, is within everyone?
I'm not sure how far you want to push the implications of what he's saying. I think basically he's saying you've got to be born by God. God's got to be involved. It's not something you can do yourself.
That's right. It's spiritual awakening. And I also have got a question here. I say it's a spiritual battle we fight, but we act it out in the political realm. Whatever we do or do not do, we are doing it not unto God. So whether we take the side of the oppressed or we take the side of the oppressor, that's a political decision. Not? Yes?
Of course, yeah.
Yes, okay. So that's my Jesus, is a social justice, radical revolutionary, devout Jew. He never was a Christian because that term was not even coined until the 3rd decade after Jesus walked the earth, correct?
I don't know if it's the third century, or when it was, but certainly.
St. Paul Acts.
Yeah, you're right. It's they start getting called. Well, they're originally called people of the way.
The way he taught, right?
Yeah, but I mean, in the end, the labels are just labels. I mean, I think Desmond Tutu said very well recently. God is not a Christian. And that's important to recognise. At one level, Christianity is just a label and an institution. That has been true and untrue to Christ at any number of times. So.
No religion owns God, and no church owns Jesus.
Well, I think no institution certainly owns God. Yeah, I mean, God is God.
Whatever God is.
God owns God.
All right, now, Father Dave, I connected with you in 2005 after my first of 7 trips to Israel, Palestine. But how did you connect on the issue of justice for Palestine, the ongoing conflict that began really in 1947.
Yeah, for me it was through my friendship with Mordechai Benunu, which went back to when he turned up at our church back in 1986, I think it was. I was working the sort of coffee shop ministry thing we had at the church, and he came in late at night on a Friday night, and we connected there. He was an Israeli tourist, and yeah, he ended up becoming part of the church community. We found we had a lot in common. We'd both just been studying philosophy. Anyway, I had no idea at the time that he was sort of holding on to all these photographs of the Mona's nuclear reactor, and it came out over the time as we talked. But that he was struggling with whether to publicise this and tell the world about the secret nuclear armaments being manufactured under the Dimona Desert. But he came to that decision while he was with us, and then, of course, as you know, he was kidnapped and sentenced to 18 years on the grounds of treason, espionage, and betrayal of state secrets, released in inverted commas in 2004. But yeah, I guess it was through Mordechai and the friendship there that started to open my eyes to a new reality in the Middle East, which I'd been blithely unaware of. I mean, I think the propaganda, for want of a better word, in our country is pretty much the same as here, and I had no idea what the Palestinian occupation was, and yeah, it's been a steep learning curve.
Yeah, same situation for me. I knew nothing about anything that part of the world really until 9/11. That started my researching, and then when I went over there in 2005 and saw the wall and started listening to the people, and also met Benunu and began a series of interviews with him that have culminated in my 3rd book, which is my only fundraising vehicle for my candidacy as a U.S. representative for the U.S. House of Representatives for 2012. That's my fundraising vehicle. But when I began this process in 2005, I had no clue as to the depth of American foreign policy, collusion with Israel's nuclear deceptions. It's spun as ambiguity, but it's deceptions. I had no clue to the depth of that, or how aligned American foreign policy is in the Zionist ideology. And would you speak a little bit about that, how Zionism began, just to have a safe, peaceful dwelling place for Jewish people, and how it has been so co-opted by, not just Jewish people, but by Christians, and that it has become this ideology of superiority that is blind to the rights, the human rights of the indigenous people of that land that we call holy.
There's a lot to respond to there.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of the whole difficulty associated with the establishment of the Jewish state, or the state of Israel rather, I mean, I think the illustration was made long ago that, it was something like a man jumping out of a burning building and then falls on some poor guy on the street. That the guy had to jump from the building, but it wasn't the fault of the guy he falls on either. You know what I mean? And I appreciate there was the Jewish people were in a desperate situation after World War II, and the creation of the State of Israel seemed like a way of giving a homeland to a persecuted people. At the same time, it meant evicting the indigenous population, or the locals there, the Palestinian people, and so now they're in a desperate situation. So, now,
Well, let me ask you this. Do you know if Australia is a member state of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights?
yeah, it is. It just fails the key to it.
That's what America too,
Yeah,
Israel
yeah.
too. And Israel's very statehood was contingent upon upholding the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and every other member state, and I believe there's 58 total member states, they're all obligated, charged with holding every other member state to it. I was told by Jeff Halper, American-Israeli founder, co-founder and coordinator of Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions, that when the states signed on to it, they never imagined the people would hold them to it. And I think what we're seeing, as we did with the Freedom Flotilla, the people, this is what it's all about, holding them to their commitments on human rights issues. This is all we've got to work with. I see it, this is what we've got to work with in challenging our governments, confronting our governments to honor their commitments. How else do we, as people who are committed to justice and peace, and we want Israeli people to have security and peace and quiet, but we also want Palestinians to have their full human rights. They're fully equal in God's eyes, and most of our eyes out here that we work for justice and peace, we see all people as equal. So what else have we got to work with our governments other than demanding that they honor their obligations as member states of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 13, everyone is allowed to leave their homeland and return to their homeland.
I hear.
Such as,
I hear.
So what else can we do?
Look, I mean, I do think if everybody knew the truth of what was going on there, things would change. If everybody in this country, in the United States, knew what was going on there, I think things would change. I mean, there is still a democratic process in this country. I think the situation there is maintained through the spreading of lies, through the propaganda, through the mass media. I think that's the only way it's maintained. Mm-hmm. One could hope that the hold that the media has on that narrative will crack at some point.
So do you see hope here now? What's going on with Murdoch, and everything seems to be falling apart here as far as the mainstream media, I call them the old Fourth Estate, being challenged by the new Fourth Estate, internet muckrackers who are just reporting the truth. They're not beholden to any corporations or conglomerates. We're just out there because we have a passion for the truth and we're trying to get the truth out. So are you seeing this breaking point as I hope I am seeing it, especially regarding this last incident with the Freedom Flotilla?
Yeah,
They couldn't even leave Greece. I mean, this is what does this show the world?
We had people on that boat, so I'm very aware of that, and yeah, it's what's that called? The outsourcing of the occupation,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a terrible illustration of just how far the influence extends for those who have an interest in maintaining the occupation. I'm optimistic. I don't know what to think of the whole Murdoch thing. I mean, there's power play going on there. God knows who's behind it. And maybe you topple one empire, you build it. I think you're right. I think the internet is where we've got hope. It's the last place where we've still got real freedom of speech at the moment. Mm-hmm. I expect they're going to try and
pull the plug.
Yeah, so to speak, at some point. But at the moment, certainly, I think it's the place where it's the alternate media, and it's the place where people can still speak freely and where the truth can still be told. And yeah, I mean, that's where we're pushing as well, because I think that's the...
that's all we've got.
It's all we've got, but it's a powerful vehicle, and I mean, I could say from our end, the number of times we get hacked into is an illustration of it must be having an effect.
Yeah, coming after you. Yeah, right. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they attack you. So you're winning.
Yeah, we're in the attack stage, and we're fighting back, so... I think, say, the arc of history, what Martin Luther King said, the arc of history is towards justice, and I believe that. And
he also said about the fierce urgency of now. And one of the fierce urgencies of now is that this man here, Mordecai Vanunu, is calling Israel to honor their own new law, which is the Citizen Revocation law. He was convicted of treason, and under this new law, any Israeli who is convicted of treason, the courts can revoke their citizenship. So I believe by August 9th, the courts will have to decide, are they going to honor their law and let Vanunu go? So what is your message to the world? How can they help at this point, being we've got the internet, the fierce urgency of now? What would be your message to concerned people in the world who are concerned about human rights and justice and want to see this guy go and, have his life?
Pray. I mean, the difficulty, what you've got, as you say, it's with the Israeli courts. We're not going to influence the decision of the Israeli courts, I don't think. I mean, there is still a level of independence in the courts, I think, in that country. Whatever the other issues are, I think that decision will be made by them. I mean, it was a crazy law. Hopefully it will backfire on them in the sense that will be freed, and thank God if that finally happens. I pray, and I believe it will. It's just a matter of time, but it's taken such a toll on him personally, and it's such an outrageous violation of justice. Let's just have to hope and pray that'll be another crack appearing in the overall machinery of violence that's there. But for Morty too, who I love as a friend, I just can't wait for that day to come.
Yes, me too. And what would be your one message to America that you came all this way from Australia, and what is the one thing that you want us to know, other than Australians do not drink Fosters? What is the other message that we need to understand here in America, being this is such a small planet, we all have to share it?
Look, I think, if you like, the message here is it's the same as in our country. We're being lied to a lot by the media, and we've got to look closely at things like Israel-Palestine. We're part of a culture that tries to keep a lot of things in the dark, and they need to be brought into the light if they're going to be confronted and changed.
God is light, God is truth, God is love. And Father Dave, I want to thank you for this opportunity. And again, I'm Eileen Fleming, founder of wearewideawake.org and a candidate for Congress from Florida for U.S. House of Representatives 2012. Last word for you, Father Dave.
No. You go for it with that campaign.
All right. Peace.